When we sold Dineout to Swiggy and when we exited, it was a very bittersweet moment because here you had built something for the last 13 years and then you're quitting.
You founded Dineout in 2011, sold it in 2022 for $200 million. How much you actually make out of that?
Probably buy more than one Lamborghini.
Ankit, you have raised funds from Forecast, which is founded by Jofra Archer, KL Rahul, Ben Stoke and all. How did that happen?
As part of a seed fund, we did raise a round. We're operating in a UK environment telling people to come to India, right? How do you sell India? How do you build trust on India? Because the media narrative on India in the Western world is still negatively skewed. We had to get people who have a lot of credibility. No one better than a bunch of cricketers, especially English cricketers, who come to India every year for the IPL, have been coming to India for the last 15, 16 years.
Who is the most impressive person you have ever met? If you had to make $1 million in next 6 months, how would you do? So in the era of AI, tech is getting commoditized and the defensibility of a startup is becoming very, very less. So in this scenario, how do you see a business sustainable or going to be fail?
We're at a stage, I think it's an inflection point for companies on how they operate. For startups, as in a lot can be done with AI because AI has the potential to obviously, reduce the time taken by, traditionally if someone was doing, something which would take them 10 people doing, 50 man hours, that can be done, reduced down because of the use of AI. But I think we're at a stage where people are still exploring. People still do not understand the full capability of what AI can do. So I think it's going to be interesting times. Obviously, some jobs are probably going to get redundant. Some startups will probably get redundant, but I think opportunity-wise, a lot more opportunities will come up. So I think people need to just be on trend and get it right.
We can say a lot of businesses disrupted when internet came out.
Correct.
And we are seeing like with the AI, a lot of SaaS companies are going to die. Like in the US, there's a small amount of SaaS being funded. In India, the number is almost zero.
Yeah.
And what do you see like these companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, Gamma and all, these companies are coming as a consumer AI facing.
Yeah.
Are they going to be die or they are going to be survive in the next 10 years?
No, I think again, it depends upon how they're able to build a use case for a individual and how are they able to help people monetize. I think the biggest excitement is that today, there are these thousands and millions of creators out there doing stuff. Can AI enable a single person to start a business, monetize, generate, and run it sustainably? I think that's where the power of AI comes in. Where earlier, it would have taken someone to do. Let's say if I want to open a shop on Etsy or Shopify and do something where it would involve hours of shoots and etc. etc. Can all of those things be done? Can it help in advertising? So I think the power of AI, we have not even hit the tip of the iceberg from that perspective. And I don't know whether it's going to be Claude or whether it's OpenAI or some new platforms out there, but I think there's a lot of interesting stuff happening. So it's definitely, interesting times. But one thing is for sure, right? AI can only replace or do a part of the stuff. For businesses that require that human involvement, the human element, I think that is never going to die, and all businesses will eventually need that. So I think for business owners, for startups, how do you use AI in the right way for your business? I think that's the most important thing.
Okay. If you want to give one advice for a young founder who is building in this era, maybe started an AI consumer company out there and want to just highlight one point which he should take care of it so that he can build a really big company. So one single point that you want to highlight.
Having a sustainable business model, because this is, in my sort of short experience, this is the third cycle that I'm seeing. The first cycle, as you mentioned, was the internet in early 2000, right? Everyone thought it's the world is going to change, and thousands and thousands of startups came up. A lot of them got funded, but at that time, without a sustainable business model, a lot of them shut down. Then again, from an Indian context, 2014-15. was the era when a lot of money came in, foreign institutional investors came in, and personally I was doing Dineout obviously, and we saw this in the food tech space where every company was getting funded left, right, and center, but ultimately today out of that hardly 2 or 3 survive. So I think there's obviously, if you ask me, to a certain level there is a hype. I think founders who are able to figure out the right business model will eventually sustain. But people today do not know what the future is going to be, and that's why there's so much money coming in.
Makes sense. I mean, what do you mean by a sustainable business model? That particular,
That,
can you give any example?
I think sustainable business model means very simply that finding the right sort of product market fit where consumers are willing to pay you and pay you again and again. Again, at the end of the day, for the AI companies, for all of them, right? It's basically all of them rely on a SaaS or a subscription model to make sure that customers are paying them again and again. The problem that they will face is that they will also get disrupted very quickly. So how do they build a use case or a product that is able to withstand the test of time? I think that means continuous improvements. That means continuously being able to innovate and continuously being able to stay ahead of the curve.
So Ankit, you founded Dineout in 2011, sold it in 2022 for $200 million. How much you actually make out of that deal?
Yeah, man, I wish I could say, and I won't. Obviously, it's been a great journey with Dineout, right? We started Dineout in 2011 when there was nothing else startup was not a known word, right? So we started up at that point in time where we did not know what the outcome is going to be. We want to make sure that we want to build a great business, and that's how the journey started. We feel lucky and privileged enough that we were able to undertake this journey for a period of 12 to 13 years and build a great business which still stands today, which is doing amazingly well within the Swiggy ecosystem. And obviously the outcome over, if you would have asked me in 2011 what my end goal would have been, I don't think so I would have ever been able to say that 200 million is a number, right? It sounds great, it sounds amazing. It's a validation of whatever we had done for the last 12, 13 years. So overall, I think the business had a great outcome. Personally, it's a very sort of when do you say enough is enough, right? That sort of thing. But yeah, as founders, we have 4 co-founders, all childhood friends, undertaking that journey. So I think money was one part of it, but I think the journey and the learning that we had probably was a much better outcome for us than the monetary aspect of it.
But yeah, I still didn't get the number. Can I say I can buy one Lamborghini from that money?
Yeah, I think that is obviously I think probably buy more than one Lamborghini, but the fact is that I don't think so. At now that is what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, crazy.
As a 25-year-old founder, yeah, that sounds amazing. But now at 40, I think our priorities are shifted from Lambos. Why buy when you can rent one?
Crazy. Yeah, that would be a great topic to be like.
Yeah. If you would have asked me, can you buy a jet? I would have had to think twice.
Oh, crazy. Okay, so right now you are building TMTC.
Yeah.
Would love to know what it is. And before you explain, just tell us what is medical travel?
Sure. So the medical travel company, just to sort of correct you, is actually the world's first full stack medical travel company. Now, what does medical travel simply mean, right? It's the opportunity where people travel from one destination to the other, one country to the other, to get medical treatments which might not be available in their home country, because of either cost advantage or time advantage, or just on the fact that expertise is not available in that country. So it's not something new. People have been traveling to different destinations for medical treatment for the last 30, 40 years. So it's not as if it's a new industry. It's already today a $100 billion industry. So what I mean by that is people leaving their home country to seek treatment in a different country. They're already spending close to $100 billion annually globally, right? Yeah, so it's a massive existing $100 billion industry. What we realized, like me and Sahil now, Sahil was my co-founder at Dineout. He's my friend for the last 35 years. We've been friends since nursery, right? So we built Dineout, and now we're doing the medical travel company together again. I think for us, the objective after Swiggy was what do we do next? So with Dineout, we were able to achieve a certain scale. We were doing a GMV of close to $1 billion annually. We were recording close to 5-6 million consumers on a monthly basis. So we wanted to do, obviously the next thing that we want to do bigger than Dineout. Now, it's very difficult to figure out what is that. So we looked at multiple sectors like edtech, fintech, health tech. And then we realized that health is actually something that has not been disrupted globally over the last few years, people have tried to do things, and we felt that an opportunity exists within healthcare to make a very big sort of a company. There's a vast blue ocean strategy available there. However, when we went deep into the space, we also realized that COVID was actually a game changer globally. So what happened? What COVID made people realize is that the infrastructure, the healthcare infrastructure of the Western world is honestly crumbling today. They are aging with the aging population, cost of healthcare rising, the number of healthcare workers, probably halving over the last 5-6 years, and COVID just sort of accelerated all of this. And as a result, the healthcare ecosystem of whether the US, UK, Europe, Canada, Australia, etc., is under a lot of strain. People are having to wait for 2 to 3 years to get surgeries done. Cost of surgeries have gone up. Cost of overall healthcare has gone up, and as a result, people have been looking at alternates or options to travel outside their home country to get treatments done at another destination where it would be probably a lot cheaper with the same quality. So the rise of Turkey, for example, as a healthcare destination in the last 8 to 10 years has just been phenomenal, where today 40% of all hair transplants globally happen in Turkey.
Got it.
So that is essentially what medical travel or medical value travel means. India also does amazingly well already. So India gets India today ranks 10 globally in terms of MVT, where it already does business worth $8 to $9 billion annually. However, the challenge that we saw when we were doing our research and figuring out what to do was that 99% of this business in India comes from the African countries or the Middle Eastern, Bangladesh, etc., or the CIS countries, which are all developing countries. Less than 1% of this business comes from the developed world, which is the US, UK, Europe, Canada, Australia, etc. So now at the medical travel company, that is what we're doing. We're building a developed world to India corridor for surgeries, because we believe that India has the potential to disrupt healthcare and become the destination of choice globally. The way, honestly, we think about it is that 2000 to 2010 was the era of call center outsourcing for India, where globally everyone outsourced the call center capabilities to India. 10 to 20 was the era of tech outsourcing to India, where India was again the forefront of it. We believe the next decade is all going to be about healthcare outsourcing, and we believe that India will play a pivotal role in this. India will emerge as the destination of choice for people, because structurally India has a lot of advantages. So for example, post-COVID, the healthcare infrastructure in India has improved by leaps and bounds. The amount of PE investment that has gone in the last 5-6 years is unprecedented. Similarly, there's been a massive amount of reverse brain drain, where doctors who left India in the 80s and 90s are now coming back to set up their hospitals, set up join some of the top hospitals in India. As a result, they're driving the overall quality of healthcare really high, which is attracting a lot of people. Plus, obviously, there's a cost advantage that we have. But one of the biggest advantages, as compared to any destination such as, let's say, Turkey or Thailand or parts of Eastern Europe, is that we are predominantly English-speaking nation. So that is also going to help attract a lot of people. So I think India has the right ingredients to become the healthcare destination of choice for people over the next 5 to 10 years. And that is the opportunity that we see. And if done right, it can be a massive business.
Great. So if I simplify it, let's say I'm living in UK and I want to get my treatment done in India, I can go to your platform and register for it, and then I can take my treatment from India.
Absolutely. So the point is, we are live today in the UK. So UK India is the first corridor. Let's understand why someone in the UK would want to do this. Right. Today, the NHS, which is the National Health Services, started off as a free service, the government service. At one point in time, it was the best healthcare service in the world. Today, it is struggling massively. There's a official waitlist of 8 million people. Unofficially, around 13 million people are waiting on an NHS waitlist to get a procedure done. 13 million is roughly 20% of the UK's population are actually waiting to get something done. Imagine you're 60, 65 years old, you need a knee replacement surgery, without which you cannot move. You're immobile, you're stuck in your house, you're not contributing to the economy. You're struggling for, the wait list is for 4 years. Someone tells you that you have to wait 4 years for this. That means you have no quality of life for 4 years. You're not able to play with your grandchildren. You're not able to enjoy life. The only alternate to, let's say, waiting for 4 years is paying out of pocket in the UK and getting it done privately. Now, that is very expensive in the UK. So, for example, let's say orthopedics is a knee surgery, a simple use case, which is now a knee replacement surgery. TKR, total knee replacement, has become a very commoditized surgery globally. It's a procedure, a robotic procedure mostly done. But to get it done in the UK at a private hospital, it will cost you anywhere between 18 to 22,000 pounds, which is a lot of money. At that point in time, if someone doesn't want to spend that money, they can come to the TMTC, the medical travel company, find the right doctor for them. We have UK doctors. They would consult with the UK doctor first, then they would consult with the Indian doctor and decide to come here. And the entire journey in India would be less than 50% of the cost. And when I say full stack, what I mean by that is that we manage the entire patient's journey from the time they think about going to the time they come back to the UK. So we have our own UK doctors who the patients see before they decide to travel. The UK doctor introduces the patient to our Indian doctor on the platform. The Indian doctor is probably someone who's worked in the UK or the US and come back and has joined a top hospital like an Apollo, Max, Fortis, who are some of our partners. Once the UK doctor and the Indian doctor and the patient do a call together, they decide the course of treatment, the patient agrees to travel. At that point in time, we swing in, we arrange the visas, flights, whatever is required, and get the patient to India. The biggest USP of what we do is that from the moment the patient arrives in India, we have a tie-up with GMR and NCAM where we pick them up from the Aero Bridge and help them with visas, with custom and immigration, and there's a car waiting for them outside. And the car brings them to our center. So what we've done is that we built our own aftercare center where patients can stay before going to hospital and recover post the surgery with us, because that helps in the recovery. And this was the biggest broken piece today in medical tourism, because in a patient's journey, only 20 to 25% of the time is actually spent inside the hospital. 75% of the time is spent recovering outside the hospital. This recovery happens in either hotels or guest houses, which are not conducive to medical recovery, because the attendant has to run around to get medicines, food, physiotherapy, doctor, etc. We have replaced that by building our own aftercare center where the patient checks in and gets everything taken care of. There's a 24/7 personal attendant. They get 6 hot meals a day. Think of it as a luxury residential Airbnb fitted for a medical recovery. And our patients are loving that. They recover here. They go back to the UK. When they go back to the UK, they see the same doctor that they saw before. So continuity of care is maintained. But the most important thing that we've done globally for the first time ever is launched an insurance product for medical tourism, which ensures the body part on which the surgery happened in India back in the UK at a private hospital. So essentially, the message that we are giving out to the doctors in the UK, our patients, everyone, is that we believe in India so much, we believe in Indian healthcare so much, and we believe in the quality of our doctors so much that we are willing to underwrite any procedure that happens via us. And if anything goes wrong, we'll get it taken care of in your home country. So you're not troubled, or you get complete peace of mind. So this full 360-degree care makes us the first full stack medical value travel company.
We can all dependent on the medical travel company, and you take care of that.
Yeah, but we are exclusively working from people outside India to India. I think people, we as Indians, obviously, we don't realize how great our access to healthcare is and how amazing the Indian healthcare ecosystem is, because today, we are hearing horror stories where, people are waiting 2 to 3, 4 years for surgeries, they're struggling, and even for basic surgery, like even to, let's say, get a basic MRI done, it's a 9-month wait, or it'll cost you anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 pounds to get a basic MRI done, which today in India, even in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, can be done in 2 to 3 days. So I think fundamentally the world is struggling with healthcare, and we believe that India can be that solution to the world.
Ankit, you have raised funds from Forecast, which is founded by Jofra Archer, KL Rahul, Ben Stoke and all. How did that happen?
Yeah, so obviously we have as part of a seed fund, we did raise a round, and what you mentioned, Forecast was one of the investors in that. So I think the interesting bit is that we're operating in a UK environment, telling people to come to India, right? obviously there's a big trust issue that we need to overcome. How do you sell India? How do you build trust on India? Because the media narrative on India in the Western world is still negatively skewed. People still look at us as, land of snake charmers, etc., with cows in the street. But that's not the case. But that's the media narrative. So to overcome that media narrative and to build trust, we had to get people with who have a lot of credibility, and we felt that no one better than a bunch of cricketers, especially English cricketers, who come to India every year for the IPL, have been coming to India for the last, 15, 16 years, have seen the evolution of India, are experiencing the Indian healthcare, because anyone travels to India for the IPL stays in India for 3 to 4 months.
Right.
They see the best of Indian healthcare, they see the best of Indian hospitality, and when we spoke to the cricketers, they actually understood that, and they realized that, because they, as I said, they understand the challenges that the UK is facing. They understand what India is all about, and they felt that what we are doing is probably something that can solve a lot of the problems of the UK people, but overall at a global level as well. And I think that's why they decide to invest in us, because they believe in what we're doing.
What was the story of this? Like how you met them, how the whole funding round happened? That I really want to know.
Yeah, so obviously medical tourism, as I said, is not a new industry, right? People have been doing it for a long time, but I think it was a very fragmented space. A lot of small companies doing this. And no one ever had the idea to solve it from a full stack approach. So I think that is something, when we went deep into the space, we realized that is what the space needs. So we wanted to go and build that. That was the model that we want to build on. Obviously, during that evolution, during our journey, we met a few VCs, and eventually we closed our round with Nexus Venture Partners, which is one of the largest VCs in India and globally. Now, as part of that, right, because we are in the UK, we are a UK registered company operating in the UK. We were meeting a lot of interesting people, and one of our partners actually introduced us to the Forecast team, and that's how we met them. And we met them before the India, the summer before the India tour to England. Right. That is when we met them for the first time. And by the time the tour got concluded, we had a few meetings with them. They loved the idea, they loved everything, and we signed. They came on board post the England India cricket tour of 2025. So yeah.
Ankit, you are one of the founder, I can say, who is a OG founder into this industry, if we say in the Gen Z language, because you have founded a company into the last decade, and then you are building in this decade. So how do you see the startup ecosystem evolve in this both of the decades?
I think it's crazy, right, how it's evolved. So back in 2011 when we were starting up, right? Actually, I don't think so startup was even a word. At that point in time, it was just kept apna kuch dhanda karna hai, apna karna hai, we don't want to work for someone else. So the ecosystem was not evolved. No one knew what a startup was. People actually did not want to do this. So when we quit our jobs, and I was an investment banker in London, been living in London for 10 years, and I decided to come back to India. Sahil was in the US, he decided to come back to India. Vivek, our third co-founder, was in the merchant navy. He decided to come back to India. Nikhil was here. So 4 of us, when we decided to start, we were 26 at that point in time. And I think the most difficult conversation with us was with our parents, because when we told them that we want to do this, they were like, have you guys gone mad or something like that? Who's gonna, and their biggest problem was not that we're disrupting our careers. Their biggest problem was, you're 26, who's gonna marry you? So that was the biggest problem back in the day. And in fact, the funny story is that within 1 year of starting Dineout, 3 of us were married, because that gave them comfort. One, ek sardardi to hata, right? That sort of a headache. Right. So I think that was the thought process in 2011. Obviously, from 11 to 25, the last 14, 15 years, we've seen the ecosystem evolve. It's become a lot more acceptable, a lot more cooler, and in fact, and at that point in time, no one wanted to take a risk, because people were like, after school, college, you go become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, like that steady profession. I think now people have understood, parents have understood that there is an opportunity, what startups is all about, what risk taking is all about. Calculated risk taking can be done, and if their children do something and they fail, that's not the end of the world. I think that one main shift I've seen is the fear of failure has been reduced significantly over the last 15 years because of the exposure, because of startups becoming household names, whether it's a Swiggy, Zomato, whether it's a Paytm, whether they've become household names now, right? So that's been I think that has obviously massively helped, and I think India is just at the cusp of sort of exploding in terms of startup. We are still nowhere close to China or the US in terms of how many startups are there per capita or et cetera, right? So I think we're at a stage where the next decade is going to be, so if we went from 0 to 10 in the last 15 years, I think the next decade is going to be 10 to 100. Like that's the impact I think we're going to see over the next few years.
So I was in China last month, and the ecosystem they have been crazy. So I have been very small towns there, which are Lujian and Luzon.
Yeah.
So they are very famous for pharmaceutical companies out there. So they have multiple pharmaceutical R&D companies out there. Just before going that, I have done a few podcasts and I have said like, I think China spend a lot in R&D. But when I went there, I see they spend a lot in R&D.
Yeah.
And like these small their R&D center of pharmaceutical companies valued more than billions of dollars. And I do not know how many they have of them. So they are spending a very good amount on the high tech.
Correct, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think India is building more on the application layer. But yeah,
China is doing obviously some crazy work. So today, Digi Yatra and facial recognition has become last couple of years came in India and sort of people have started to use it. I was in China in 2015-16, I remember, and the entire journey at the airport, even for an international tourist, was all facial recognition. It was insane what we saw in 2015, and now it's catching up. So I think China definitely has the advantage. They're definitely doing a lot of crazy stuff, but I think India also has the potential. We are definitely getting better at what we are doing. I think the new, the new generation of founders are building some crazy, insane companies, and I think we're gonna definitely see a lot of improvement in deep tech, where space tech, AI, etc., coming out of India in the next few years.
We were talking about like startup in 2011 and 2025. When I think about it, I see how much big challenge is for a founder in 2011, because right now, when I started out, I had everything. What I can say, if I want to reach out to any investor, I can go to LinkedIn, just send them a request, they can accept, we can get on a Zoom call, and the deal can close. This is how my first round happened. And if I see how someone have raised in 2011, they do not have access of anything.
No,
like LinkedIn was very maybe premature.
No, this was obviously before the era of social media took over. Everything, it was all. It was actually the era of phones, right? Like for example, the first when we started Dineout, people were calling us to make reservations, right? Obviously now you can't even think of calling in; it's all app based. So obviously we've seen a massive evolution. Obviously, 2011 was it was like the wild west, right, of the startup ecosystem. It didn't exist, honestly. So yeah, if I was building Dineout now as compared to 2011, I think it would have been so much easier today. Having access to a lot of technology, having access to a lot of people, having access to resources, just having access to someone who can you can call as a mentor and speak to. So definitely, there's been a massive change. I think there's never been a better time than now for anyone thinking of starting up, whether it's someone 19 years old right out of school or 65 years old and wanting to reinvent what they're doing. And I think I think we're definitely going to see a lot of craziness out there.
Yeah, I always say like kudos to the founder who started in that era. On the back door, we were just talking about content creation. So how do you see content creation as a distribution? Because I will connect this question with the first question. What I see when AI, with the help of AI, tech is getting commoditized, everyone can build out products. Okay, there will be like 10 replica of OpenAI can be built it out. 10 replica of Claude can be built it out. The company which can survive will be survive with the help of distribution. In this, if I can say in the AI consumer space or in the application layer. So any company who will crack out the distribution, we can see this as an example of a Gamma. Okay, Gamma, Jenny AI, you can take the example. These are the company which have very easy to be built. Like if I can say you, this can be built out with a vibe coding via like maybe a first or second year of a student in college, they can build out these platforms out there, and they cannot crack the distribution that these companies have. These companies just have cracked out the distribution and they are playing on the top of it. So I just want to ask you, how do you see a content creation in this next era of, like, let's say next 10 years?
So I think the main point to note in this is that, let's say 10 years back, right? There's a big FMCG who's built a product, and then there's a small startup who's built. The small startup's product could be better priced, but the FMCG could pour in millions in distribution, content creation, and win the game because it was really expensive to get stuff done. I think what has changed today is that with the help of some of these new age AI tools, one, the cost of creating content has just gone down drastically. Like AI today can create some fantastic product videos just on the basis of input given to them. So that's one. I think the other advantage today is with the help of social media, right? Small companies or products can go viral if they do it right. And we've seen, massive people, like we've seen YouTubers, and they did it in the era where, for the last 5-6 years where AI was not available. I think the next 4-5 years, people who are able to crack onto the human emotion, right, and are able to sell, I think it's all about storytelling. Someone who's able to sell the story or tell the story better with the help of AI will probably, win out there. What has happened is that the cost of content creation has actually come down to, let's say, there's been a 99% reduction in that. So I think the internet has been democratized. Social media has democratized the difference between let's say a very large company and a very small company. So if done right, people can create insane amount of value for themselves by just doing some of the basic stuff right. So I think, again, as I say, it's going to be really interesting times for sure.
Let's say everyone is able to create content that easily, then it will be flooded with the same content.
Absolutely. How do you make yourself stand out? And the clutter is going to be the key, right? Like I think that's where people's creative side is going to eventually shine through.
So let's say you are a 20-year-old student in the second year of your college, and you want to do a startup. What would you do it, and how would you build that startup? Take us through step by step.
So I think today the advantage that people have is access to information, which allows them to sort of take the right decisions. Like when we were starting up Dineout in 2011, right? We knew we wanted to do something in the restaurant industry. We knew there's an opportunity that exists, but we didn't have the resources available to do a lot of research, speak to people, etc., understand the consumer mindset. We had a bet, a hunch, and we took that, and then eventually it played out. I think today, with the access to information, with the access to people, I think it's become a lot easier to find the right niche or the right space to build something. As a 20-year-old, I think you have to understand or figure out the right space of what you want to do. It could be a product that you build, it could or you make, it could be a service, it could be a platform, it could be anything. But the advantage is that there are enough people out there to guide you, to advise you, to do the right thing. So, and that is also actually, I would say, a risk as well, because with so much information, so much information out there, how do you, I would say the advantage that maybe someone had 10-15 years back of the knowledge, there is no knowledge disinformation or knowledge advantage remaining anymore. So people who are fast enough, who are quick enough to act and pick a pace, they need to make sure that they are moving quickly as well, because disruption today can happen in weeks rather than years, which was earlier. So yeah, so I think as a founder, you might not get it right the first time, but you should definitely follow your gut and follow your dream and go for it.
Yeah. One startup idea you want to give to our audience, like that you see, like if you were a 20-year-old, you would have built it out.
Yeah, there are honestly multiple ideas. So in fact, we are investors. We are angel investors as well, and we have around 45 companies in our portfolio. The advantage that today we have is that we've had the privilege of watching the Indian startup ecosystem grow over the last 15 years. And as a founder, we understand that you cannot do everything. So when we come across great founders or we come across great businesses, we love to support the founders on their journey. So me, Sahil, Vik, Nikhil, we're angel investors. We have a small fund. We invest actively so that we are able to understand what's happening out there, but also learn from some of the new gen founders. They're insanely capable.
Definitely. You were talking about your fund. Can you just tell about a little about your fund so our audience will know?
No, so it's a basically a small, I would say, angel fund, and essentially we are us being first time founders ourselves. We have the privilege of building a company from ground up and growing it, right? So what we believe today is that we can, being operators ourselves, we can help founders cut down on a lot of mistakes that they could potentially make in the 0 to 1 journey, and what it would take them normally 12 months to do, with our help and guidance probably they can do in 6 months. And that is where we come in. So we like a business, we like an idea, we like the founder, we want to go in early and help the founder build out their MVP and help them in the 0 to 1 journey.
And I would like to suggest one thing, like you are very easy to reachable. So anyone want to reach out to Ankit, just can DM on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is the best place, yeah.
He will definitely reply you. If you had to make $1 million in next 6 months, how would you do it?
I think that's an interesting question, right? So if you were to ask me, this question like 10 years back, it would have been like, oh, is it possible? You have to find the right product, build the right website, find the right distribution channel, etc., etc. But I think these days, obviously, it's become a lot easier to do that, right? So here's what I would do, at least personally, right?
Yeah.
So I think today, the world is one large playground, right? And so for example, I travel a lot, right? And I during my travels, I discover that, one country is great for certain products, one country is great for certain products. Like for example, India, right? It could be India's textile or handlooms or art of creating jewelry. These are all great crafts which have been carried out for generations, and people across the world appreciate it, but probably the access to that is not easy, right? So what I would do probably is that one, figure out the top 20 countries with a rich cultural heritage. Figure out what are the top 10 or 20 products from those countries which people, for example, would love to sort of see or have, and then create a storefront, and where you could list out these top culture products from each country, and then use AI, create some great shots, create a great product videos, which is the best of, let's say, the best of India, the best of China, the best of UK, etc., etc. What each country from a product perspective has a great advantage, or what people across the world love, like Russia has those, the miniature dolls, etc. So just figuring those out and create a platform and put it out there, and then enable and today with the advancement in logistics and drop shipping, etc. Just able to figure out how can you get those products to people across the globe. Like, because I see, for example, when I travel to different parts of the world. So in the last, let's say, 6 months, I've been to parts of Africa, I've been to the UK, I've been to obviously the Middle East, Thailand, and I'm just seeing that overall, everywhere the acceptance or the demand for Indian products is also massive. And here I'm not talking about Alibaba, etc., which sell everything that China has to offer. I'm talking about a curated platform which has the best of that world and sell. So I think something like that would probably be could be in a lot of demand.
Who is the most impressive person you have ever met?
So I said I spent a lot of time in the UK. I was there for 10 years. I was an investment banker. And during an event, I had the privilege of meeting Sir Richard Branson, who we all know is the founder of Virgin Group. And when I met him, had a brief chat with him, I understood, got to know a bit more about him. And then I read 2 of his autobiography. So it's called Finding My Virginity. and that's the book. That's his autobiography. And honestly, I'm still today blown away. I'm honestly blown away with what he did, because we're talking about 2011, and you were saying that there's a massive difference between a founder in 2011 and 2025. Here's a guy who built something like one of the largest, global businesses, sustaining decades in the 70s and the 80s. So just the amount of respect I had for someone who did that then and continues to do today, whether it's whether it's Virgin Air, whether it's the Airways or the music label or the hotels or the the cruises or the Virgin Galactic, like just what he's been able to build over the last sort of 30 to 40 years is just been phenomenal. And just listening to him, just speaking to him, I think I was in awe, and so amazing. Yeah.
No, I mean, totally agreed. Like when I read his story, I mean, really inspired by him. So definitely, I can really understand what it feels to meet him.
He's one of the few people globally who's made an airline work successfully for the last so many years. So yeah.
So Ankit, if all of your content, all of your podcast, all of your blogs were erased from internet and all you have next 60 seconds, what is the one advice you want to give this world?
Having been on the journey that I've been, right, I think I would say the one thing is that don't hold yourself back and follow your passion. I meet so many people at different stages of the career who, for some reason or the other, have not been able to pursue their dreams or pursue what they want to do. And I think life is short, and as a result of that, I've seen a lot of regret in people. I've seen a lot of people just say that, oh, I wish I would have done that in my 20s, or I wish I had done it in my 30s. I think today, with the way the technology is, the way technology is evolving, I think it doesn't matter whether you're in your 20s or whether in your 40s. I think there's no right time to start doing what you love or what you want to do than now. So that would be my one sincere advice. Like, if you have the will, if you want to do something, have the courage, the will, and the determination to sort of go for it. And in today's in today's environment, you will find a way to make it work.
Interesting, very interesting. Like, this is a advice I think I also took from myself when I was starting out. Like, don't hold yourself back when you want to do something, and there is nothing that can stop you, right? If you are on your goal and want to do something, then everything will come around and support you. So definitely a great advice for any young founder who is listening.
Fantastic.
Ankit, what is the one best piece of advice you have ever received?
This goes back to all the way in 2010. I was in London. I was an investment banker. I'd been doing investment banking for the last 5 years, and I had survived the credit crisis, the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, and I found myself working, 14, 16-hour days, and really wondering to myself that, why should, if I have to work 14 hours, 16 hours a day, why do it for someone else and help and make profit for them? Why not do it for myself? However, at that point in time, being 25 years old, living in London, having a great job, leading a great lifestyle, earning very good money, I thought, why bother? Why you lead a comfortable life? And at that point in time, one of my managers told me, and so I was 25 years, 42, 43 at that point in time, and he said that, I still distinctly remember that, he told me that, would you rather be 25 and do this now, or be 43, the age I am in, and regret not doing this 18 years back? And I think that is what honestly made me think, because when I came back to the UK, so I was actually 6 months away from my UK citizenship. I had just passed my CFA charter, which I had been studying for the last 5 years. I was doing phenomenally well from a career perspective. And, money was not a problem. And all of a sudden, leaving all of that, leaving the comfort of predictability, leaving the comfort of a great job, and just landing up in India without, saying that I'm going to do something. So that to me was only possible because of that one single advice, that do I want to be 43 and regret not doing something for the rest of my, for the last 18 years, or do I want to do this and just doesn't matter if it works or not, at least I will not feel that I did not pursue that. So I think that was coming from a place where, he himself felt a lot of regret of not having done things when he had the opportunity. And I think that was something that I just genuinely took to heart, and I have decided to follow through, because as I said, right, leave at the age of 25, coming back to India after having, lived outside India for the last 10 years, it was insane. Like, my parents, no one could believe it. So, yeah.
Right. हर एक फाउंडर की लाइफ में ऐसी सिचुएशन आती है where nothing is working out for them. He's just putting effort.
Yeah.
He's doing everything out there. But कुछ हो नहीं रहा होता. आपके भी लाइफ में while building Dineout वो सिचुएशन आई होगी. How did you tackle it? क्या किया था आपने? Would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've learned in my journey on Dineout is perseverance as a founder. See, because the life of a startup founder is not easy. No one can prepare you for it. No one can prepare you for the ups and downs. One day you're doing amazingly well. The next day COVID happens and your business goes to zero. That was our story, right? And that happened multiple times. And that was an event that no one could predict. So obviously crazy amounts of ups and downs. I think the only thing as a founder you should do, and it could be that you are trying to, find the right product market fit, and you try 20 things that doesn't work, and if you give up, you never know if the 21st thing would have worked. So I think that in my mind, perseverance has to be the key, but it has to be, you cannot be foolishly persevere on something. Like, you have to have indications of what's working, what's not working. And I think in today's day and age with technology, I think you can get a good idea or sense of these things rather quickly, as opposed to 10, 15 years back. So I think it's important to pivot, but it's also important to persevere, to make sure that you're on the right journey and you're able to get the results. So I think what I've realized and what I've seen is that, having worked with a lot of startup founders, having funded a lot of startup founders, and having a lot of startups go to zero, I think people sometimes tend to give up very easily or quickly, because they believe that is the easier thing to do. So for me, I think that would be the most important thing.
Very interesting. So now we are coming to the end of this podcast, Ankit. I just want to say one thing. I mean, this is the best thing I could say, like any founder would love to listen. I mean, thank you for building Dineout. Like, we are using it from a very long time. Like, when I come to this city and all, Dineout is one of the applications that we have used out whenever we go to any restaurant, and nowadays every restaurant we pay through that. So thank you for building that great company, and very best to you for building the next company. And looking forward to it.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me over. I think as founders, right, that is what. So obviously, when we sold Dineout to Swiggy and when we exited, it was a very bittersweet moment, because here you had built something for the last 13 years and then you're quitting. So obviously, it's like giving up a part of, something which has been a part of your life for the last 13 years. But what gives us hope and happiness is that, it continues to exist today. It continues to help millions of people, save, thousands of crores every year. It's a product that, we've got a lot of love for. We obviously still use it, but a lot of people tell us that, you built a great product. So that is what, gives us a lot of satisfaction. And I think that made us realize that the next company that we want to build has to outlive us. And hopefully with the medical travel company, that's what happens. We build something which is legacy for the next 100 years.
Best of luck for the medical travel company. I think you will definitely achieve the goal that you have seen for the big world out there. And thank you for the coming.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for having me on. Perfect. Thank you.